Jonathan, you're both very welcome.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about what you imagine or what you think or you've experienced to be the secrets to a successful relationship. From your experience, I mean, you're both married. What do you think the secrets are to successful relationships?
I think it's important that you like each other.
Okay, now just to say, you're not actually married to each other, you're married to separate people.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, good. But you like each other, it's kind of important, yes?
Yeah, that should be the starting point. I mean, there are arranged marriages out there, aren't there? And
Sure.
forced together couples. But if you do like each other from the word go, that's a key ingredient, I would say.
Just liking each other. Anything else?
Yeah, well, that's just a good starting point because it can be hard. Unfortunately, the most exciting part of a relationship can be at the beginning.
Okay.
That, oh my God, will they call? That feeling, the butterflies. Because yes, the love gets deeper. Yes, the love gets stronger and different as time goes on. But it's difficult to keep it at that exciting level. So
Okay.
I think, fancying each other and trying to keep that going is key to having a successful
I think
marriage.
doing little things for someone, because when you start off a relationship, it's not what you're doing. You kind of do little things. You write notes. You send them a text saying, "Oh, I love you," and you're quite creative when you, particularly men. I'm always romantic the first third of relationship. Shouldn't say that now. I'm married, but the first year or so, you kind of you make presents, you surprise them with, and after as time goes on, you become more comfortable and you become a little bit more lazy. And I actually think I heard it from a priest during a marriage preparation course. Do little things for one another, and every once in a while, that sort of thing will sort of refresh the the love between you, and make each other realize that the person does care, and despite all the stuff that's gone on your busy day,
Sure.
that actually at the end of the day they're there to make your life a little bit easier, and that's one of the great things about having someone for the rest of your life.
And what do you think the common mistakes that people make in relationships? What goes wrong in relationships, in your experience?
You start taking each other for granted.
Okay.
I mean, it's very easy to say you should do little things, and you're right, but it's very hard on a day-to-day basis when you come home and you're tired and you just kind of say hi and you have your dinner and you watch TV and you go to bed, and every day you say, God, must get flowers, must write a note, must do this. But the days just roll into weeks, into years, and for some couples, before you know it, I think they must wake up and go, God, when was the last time we even had a proper conversation?
Yes. Yeah.
A real conversation rather than how's your day? Hi.
What's a real conversation? Girls always talk about this. They always say, "Oh, we talk about something real and
And
Your
meaningful.
feelings.
oh God."
But why is
do
talking
women
about your
always
feelings
want to talk
important?
about the feelings?
Why should men have to talk about feelings? It's not what we do.
Well, a second ago now, Jonathan said, your feelings. You're saying, hi, had a really great time today. Just want to let you know I'm really enjoying this relationship. Like, at the start, you're all about the feelings.
That's the first
I
third of the
don't think I
relationship.
said that at all. I said do little things for them, like make their dinner or have the house clean when they come home.
you never
right?
said,
I didn't say
about my
let's talk
feelings.
about my feelings for 2 hours.
Well, what were you
Typical-
saying in your text at the start of a relationship?
Well, yeah, okay, you might text it. Yeah, brief. 160
Feelings.
characters is what you get in a text,
I
right?
miss you, I want you.
Yeah, I don't mean like a
I'm
2-hour talk about where we're
I'm
going.
feeling disengaged from you at the moment. Men don't say those kind of things.
No, but you're right. Women do like to, and men need to do that. Doing something for your partner is actually talking about your feelings if they want to talk about them, even though you may not.
But maybe that's the case, that men just believe that we're not supposed to talk about our feelings, but we would like to talk about our feelings, but our partners might not actually listen to us. I mean, if your husband would sit down with you and say, Claire, I need your full attention for 5 minutes. Okay, what's wrong? No, nothing's wrong. I just want to talk to you about stuff. Well, we have a baby now. You guys have a baby, right?
Yep.
So we have a baby, and things have changed for me, and I'm feeling very, concerned about where we're going in the future. If your husband was to start talking about his feelings, how do you think you'd react to that? Would you be open to it? Really? Now, be honest. Would you be really open to it? If he did it every week, I want a 5-minute chat about how I'm feeling every week. Thanks very much, Claire.
No, I just want to talk about my feelings.
Right. Okay.
And his reactions to my feelings and talk it out.
Right.
But
So you don't
yes,
really
you're
want
right.
my feelings
You're
at all.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. And isn't that one of the problems in relationships, that we believe our partners are supposed to be more like what we want them to be like, as opposed to realizing they're actually completely separate individuals and they're supposed to be respected as such.
Well, I've read a thing in one of the papers, and they were saying that they did a study. It was a meta-analysis, what they call, of all the psychological studies that
Sure.
looked at the different traits of men and women.
Yes.
And they said that apart from what we really thought was the case, actually there's only a 10% overlap
That's right.
in psychological traits, so that we actually are very, very different creatures. And I think we are. I really do think men and women think and approach a problem completely different.
Yeah.
But do you think that's because of that's because we're men, or because of how we were how we're led to believe we're supposed to solve problems. Because I've equally read studies that say that the way we react to things like, say, parallel parking. If you read enough times in newspapers that women don't parallel park as well as men, then women will inevitably fail those tests when it comes to parallel parking because they believe that they're not that good. Whereas if you tell women or men that we're fantastic at maths or science or we're good at feelings, that we actually excel the amount that we're told that we can excel at that particular thing. Is that not the case too?
Well, there are stereotypes. I mean, they say
Sure.
women can multitask, but I mean,
Men can multitask
of
too.
course you can do. You
Of
can
course.
have a phone call and speak to somebody and do all that kind of stuff. So there
I
are
can't.
stereotypes out there.
That's because
I
you're
really am a
unique.
unitask. I'm a rare species. I cannot do two things properly.
You walk in the street with a book in your hand.
Yeah.
So why
You
are
text,
you
probably
doing
text
that,
and
yeah.
drive
Yeah.
if you're really
I
honest.
do
which
that.
is
I
really
actually
kind
do walk into poles a lot, or other people. I think another pitfall of relationships is people. We have a fight when you're single or you're just going out with someone. You find it very difficult to say sorry, and
Sure.
once you become married, there's no get out there. You have to say you're sorry, and I think just start, even if you're not necessarily 100% wrong, to admit early enough that it doesn't get awful, that you are wrong, or you were wrong, or even to smile when if you force yourself to smile after you've gotten really angry
Sure.
with your wife. You kind of realize actually this isn't really that important, or I am partly responsible. And it's amazing when you say sorry how quickly you find that the spouse would say sorry back. I'm not sure if that's the case with you, but it is the case with my wife.
But then we're getting back to the talking about feelings. As a woman, you don't want to just hear the word sorry. You want to talk about why it happened, whether or not you think it might happen again. It depends on the issue,
So you want
obviously.
to analyse the problem to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
But isn't it the case that women are very likely to bring up past arguments that actually, in the man's mind, were resolved a long time ago, but then when something else happens, you say, oh yeah, and I'm annoyed with you about that happened 3 years ago as well.
Well, see, women are really good at remembering. So
I
if
know.
you say, when was the last time you were romantic, the guy can't
Of course we can't
remember.
No, it's
Whereas
terrible.
I think women are better at arguing. They can say, well, there was that time, and they
Yeah.
can pull up all these different
Yeah, we can't do that.
examples. No, so that's why often you're kind of backed into a corner, I think.
And that's why I teach people on this particular course that they're not allowed to actually bring up anything from the past and bring it into the current argument, because it's really ineffective. It just doesn't resolve arguments at all.
But it proves the point, David.
Which is what? That you're right and that we're wrong. And is that good for the relationship, Claire, is the real question.
Even if you are right all the time, you have to let us think we're right at least 20% of the time.
Yeah, okay.
And, but isn't it good to admit that you're wrong, even if you don't really believe that you're wrong, because your partner's feelings are more important than the pride you get from being right. Is that not the case?
And then when you do that and they talk to you back, they sort of once that kind of you're right and I'm wrong and that sort of barrier between you is gone, you're more likely to actually listen and actually realize that they are right and their way of looking at it is appropriate, if not necessarily what you would consider to be exactly
Sure.
perfect,
Sure.
but that you do see the things from their point of view.
It's like debating in school. The first thing you do in debate is to take the other person's viewpoint. What are they going to debate about this particular issue? Same in relationships. If you can kind of see your partner's perspective, even if you don't agree with it, it's kind of important. But I wanted to just bring you on to being a parent. How has becoming a parent, because you're both new parents, how has that affected the way you relate to your partner? Talk to me about sleep deprivation, for example.
Well, I have taught on numerous occasions in what's been an amazing 8 months.
Sure.
Anyone who has a Band-Aid baby, God help them. Any couple that decide things aren't working out here, let's have a baby, it'll make everything much better, they are dead in the water, because you
Okay.
can have the most perfect, loving relationship, put a baby into it, and much as it's a great thing to happen to you,
Sure.
it can absolutely rip you apart. And it's the
In
two
what
words
way?
you said, sleep
How?
deprivation.
Sleep deprivation, okay.
All of a sudden, I certainly found the way you start talking to your partner changes. You're
What
like,
way?
grab us that bag. Not that bag. I need the bag with the nappies in it. What? I told you before. We need that. Like, all of this starts coming
You
in.
get very aggressive.
In movies, it looks all, hooray, this is so
Sure.
beautiful. And in reality, it can be very different.
Okay.
Yeah, you get snappy. If
Very.
it's snappy and impatient. And what I've found is, if something is not working and it has worked for you,
Sure.
one partner will say, "Oh, you're not doing it right," or "You haven't done this," and they get quite impatient with you doing, and that is a recipe for disaster, because the other person's trying, and it may be different in this particular circumstance. So getting a child to sleep, which is an argument I had last night.
Really?
Well, I have a certain knack
Yeah.
of getting the little fella back to sleep, and I'm told you can't do that. You're supposed to put him down and let him sleep on his own. And he's crying. I've got to
Yeah, of
resolve
course.
this problem. So
Yeah.
that different methods of parenting, even with a good night's sleep, how to treat a particular problem when a baby is crying at you, and it's one of those sounds I think biologically and evolutionarily
Exactly.
we're kind of programmed not to ignore.
Yeah.
It's drilling into your brain, and that loses your patience. You end up snapping at someone and telling them I need you. And they don't know how to do simple things like change a nappy.
How has it affected the way you look at affection, for example, in your relationship? Because, as you mentioned, in the start of a relationship, you're very romantic, you're very
Yeah.
affectionate, those kind of things are important. How does affection get affected by, the attention you have to give to the baby, the lack of sleep, the entire huge amount of responsibility that you have for a child? What happens into the relationship as a consequence of that?
Well, I noticed certainly in our relationship at the start, I was feeding our son, so he'd be in the bed. So the books say, be careful, you could roll over the baby and it could die, and that's what you're constantly striving to do, is keep the baby alive. So I used to have
It's
pillows.
a minimum requirement as a parent.
Indeed.
Isn't it?
It is, yeah, it helps.
So I used to have pillows in the middle of the bed, because if he was in the middle of us, just to save him from imminent death. And we got into the habit of never snuggling in at night, having a little chat at the end of the day, which we always would have, and say
Sure.
good night. It just became good night, roll over, and that was the end of it. That became a habit that we had.
Really?
That's dangerous.
Okay.
Same when you come home. It used to be coming in from work, instantly a quick hello, hi, how are you, how was
A
your
connection.
day? Delighted to see you.
Sure.
Now you're just dying to see that little person. What did they do today?
Okay.
What did they say? When did they eat? What bottles did they have? And you find you didn't actually look at your partner for maybe half an hour, and then you go, oh, hi, how's it
You're
going?
here, great.
And it's a big change,
Sure.
a massive change.
Instead of it's hi honey I'm home, it's what did he do? What did he eat?
Yeah.
Did you change him?
Did I miss
Did you
anything?
take his temperature?
Why? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think that women become more critical of men's attempts to parent? Is that a kind of a natural thing that happens?
Well, men are way more hands-on now than, say, our parents' generation, which is great. I don't know how they coped with that. But still, ultimately, it's the wife or the mother who takes the time off, who takes the 6 months maternity leave.
Of course.
Or whatever. So she's at home more. And it's very difficult for you as a woman not to think that you know how to look after the baby better because you're there more often.
I haven't found that. Weirdly, I haven't found. Well, I suppose it's the type of person that I am. It's like I wouldn't let anyone tell me what to do.
Okay.
But I haven't found that with me particularly. Like I
You know
think,
best.
I think I know best. No. I think I know just as well. We both sit down. We kind of go, okay, what do we do? Well, we read a book. How do we feel about it? And so I think we do make those sort of decisions better. I suppose it's partly because I'm a more confident / aggressive human being than she is.
Sure.
And we complement each other in that way. But that's why I wouldn't just be told, you just look after yourself, and I know how to be a mum. I'd
So
say
you'll
pride.
assert yourself and say, well,
Yeah.
actually, I've read this and I think this is actually appropriate. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of important in relationships, that you
Yeah.
assert, what you believe to be true at that time.
Yeah.
That's kind of important.
Well, I remember looking at friends who'd had babies, and a lot of them I would see kind of raise their eyes to heaven at the dad when, say, I don't know, the baby would start crying on their knee, or might do a bit of a tumble, which can happen,
course,
with them.
of course.
And they're like, oh, this is Egypt. And I said, I'm never going to be that mother.
Mm.
I'm never going to do it. I love this man. We're having this baby together. And I've caught myself doing it. Now, at least I've tried to correct that, but I do think it's something that just comes along, whether it's maternal instinct. I don't know what it is.
If you're doing that in public, that I think is a real.
So bad.
But if you're doing it privately to yourself, sometimes
Yeah.
you can catch yourself, whatever. But yeah, when you do see that, I do. I
Just
do
give the baby to me, that kind of thing.
And I think it's an awful thing because it makes the man feel humiliated in front
Sure.
of other people.
Sure.
It makes him think, why would I be bothered? And it gets his back up. I think that is a really damaging thing that parents who are new parents really need to look out for, is how you speak to your partner, about pretty much anything.
Yeah, it's kind of like the basic of respect, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
that fundamental core, attribute of respect for your partner. They're doing their very best in whatever that issue is, and do you respect them for doing so, or do you just kind of undermine them as well? Parenting can often be where you undermine your partner to try and prove that you're right. 'Cause
Yeah.
the book you read is better than the book that your partner read. Isn't that a problem sometimes too?
I think respect is
Okay.
I think it's the cornerstone of pretty much any time a man is going to get angry with someone else is because they've been belittled. And if I look
Sure.
at the major relationship arguments I've ever had, it's because one person undermined
Yes.
either the person's family and disrespected them.
Sure.
You know, when it comes to discussions of religion, that become very, very difficult if you're not, on the same page. But other times where, say for example, I had a big fight because we were checking in at a standby desk and I asked a question and my wife was like, "Why are you asking that question?" And in front of this guy, it kind of made me feel like I was just being a nuisance.
Yes.
And I flipped the
Flipped,
lid and
yeah,
I
of
said,
course.
because I felt belittled in the eyes of someone else, and I think respect. If you respect your partner, and that comes down to how people speak to each other, and that if you like them, you will respect them. I think that's a huge part of whether or not your relationship is going to work. I think.
I'd say that was a long flight, was it? Have to
It was a
check
pretty
in.
long flight, yeah.
Yeah,
It was, it was 12 hours.
And of course, being a parent, then you have the other kind of difficulty of money being an issue. So, money is a massive problem for most couples. How do you think the inability to manage money in a relationship affects relationships, especially if a woman has given up her job and her career and she doesn't have her own income? What does that do to the power, for example, in a relationship?
Money isn't an issue for us
Okay.
because we're both the same.
Okay.
To our detriment. We're both spenders. We're both,
Okay.
let's
So-
not worry about this. So
Okay.
we don't have opposing views. We both
Okay.
just kind of think.
Live for the day kind of
Yeah,
stuff. Okay,
yeah, which we're lucky in. But my dad gave me advice. He said always have your own
running
bank
away money or
accounts.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, because
sure.
well,
Really?
this is his excuse, right? And this is typical men. I'm sorry to say that.
Okay,
You
not being
you can
sexist,
kill
but go
me.
ahead.
Yeah.
He says because if you have the one account, you can't do anything nice for each other without the other knowing.
Oh.
So that's his excuse for always ringing me on Christmas Eve saying, "Will you get your mother a Christmas
That's
present?"
wonderful.
Yeah,
Good
in,
for
in
him.
reality, when was the last time you ever checked a shopping bill that you had? And I'm the same. My wife, she doesn't go pour through the. Men do that. Men go through the bill. 11th of April. What was that?
What was that for?
Okay, I did that.
That's
yeah.
really weird. Why do they do that? My husband even leaves out the
So you don't
the
get
receipt for the
ripped off.
supermarket
Yeah.
if he's done it, so I can see how much he spent. I mean,
And do you have
why?
a joint account or do you have your own individual accounts?
We have both. We have joint account for the big things,
big
the
stuff.
mortgages, the
Okay.
bills, and all that. But then we have our
So
own.
do you
money.
keep your own individual money for your own particular spending then? Your own personal spending?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you tell your husband about all the purchases that you
No.
do? Yeah,
No, you spend 200 quid in a handbag that actually, when you got it home, you have nothing to wear it with, for example. That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Or he'll say, "Is that
match
new?" And I'll go,
it. No,
"No."
it's not stupid.
Yeah, I do that.
Okay. Is that bad to keep those kind of personal money for your own personal spending? Shouldn't you have the right to do that?
If you have a gambling habit, it's probably bad. to
Major
do
issue.
that. Yeah.
course.
If it's not affecting, if you have a sick child
Yeah.
and you're sneaking, your new Manolo Blahniks under the bed and trying to scuff them up, I think that's the. But I think small purchases,
Sure.
as long as they don't. I mean, he says defending
It's a
himself.
lie
'cause
though,
I know-
isn't it?
It is a lie. I
It
mean, but
is.
like you can't be 100% honest. If you're 100% honest with your partner all the time, you're dead in the water.
So you think that having some dishonesty or kind of keeping something secret in a relationship is good?
You're twisting my words
I am.
slightly, David.
Yeah, when you say it like that.
Well, I think there are certain things you don't need. If it's not going to affect the relationship, if it came out in a major way, then I think you'd probably best not to say everything you did.
So you're out at your friend's stag in Poland or someplace and
Yeah.
some beautiful blonde is chatting you up and won't leave you alone for the entire night. So that'd be something you'd tell your wife or just keep it to yourself? Now nothing's happened, but this particular individual has given you lots of attention. Do you go and tell your wife this or do you just keep it to yourself?
I would sooner not know. Unless there was an actual act of unfaithfulness, I would sooner not know. Who cares?
Right.
Bit of flirting in a bar and a stag.
But what
fine.
if you heard about it from, say, Jonathan's best, or the guy who's getting married? Jonathan's the best man for this particular guy, and he mentioned it. Oh, did he tell you about the one in the bar in Poland? You're like, what blonde in Poland? What are you on about? Would that not be a problem then?
Well, I'm lucky. I trust my husband. I know him. Now, I only said to you yesterday, because we work on a radio talk show, and we've spoken about cheating so many times, and the stories would make your hair stand on end. People, everyone who's been cheated on thought they knew the person they were with. So
Yes.
never say never. But
Okay.
I would actually have a laugh at them and say, "So I hear you were scored in the bar." I'm not the type of person to go home and go, "How dare you? Why didn't you tell me? This is ridiculous." They're not the kind of feelings.
What
I
makes
like
you
to
different
discuss.
than other women who might get jealous, for example?
Am I a bit more confident? I think a lot of
Confidence?
jealousy.
Am I
comes
a
from-
bit more confident? She
A little
asked
bit of swagger.
coyly. Am I a little bit more confident? Who knows?
Does it come from insecurities? I mean, are you thinking you were with somebody else? You're kind of reflecting it back on yourself. I'm kind of confident in myself and in how he feels about me.
Yeah, I mean, the
Sure.
people I think who have been cheated on badly, they're the ones who are sensitive to, but not as sensitive as the people who are cheating. the cheaters tend to be the most paranoid ones, or the ones who have done it in the past, because they know that people do it.
Yes.
And so they're the most paranoid, going, are you cheating? Because I am. and that I honestly genuinely think that happens a lot. But I think, if you're going down the road with someone and they are a very paranoid or a very jealous person, then there are warning signs there.
Sure. I want to just bring you on finally to discuss sex, which, from your talk show, I've heard it a few times been mentioned. You mentioned
Claire loves talking. I won't talk this part. Claire loves talking about sex.
This is totally the opposite.
Well, I suppose the question is, how do you think our perception of what we're supposed to do in the bedroom or wherever has changed in the last 20 years, in a positive way and in a negative way, based on what society, the media, whoever is telling us we're supposed to, or what we're supposed to be doing in our sex lives? How do you think that's changed?
There's very mixed messages out there, aren't there? There's the usual stereotype that once you're married, it's going to kind of go out the window and it can just get very boring. Well, when you have a baby, and as I say, bolster pillows down the middle, yes, it can be difficult to overcome that. But then we're living in a very open society,
Sure.
sexually. So you imagine that, if you're not having it, the people next door probably are, and down the road, and they're all doing all sorts of mad, weird and wonderful things that you're not having time to fit in. So
Sure.
there is that kind of conflicting message.
I mean, before Sex and the City, and I know people can keep talking, but it was one of those seminal TV shows.
That's right.
Where they talked about vibrators and they talked about sexual acts that even I, and that's saying something, even I hadn't heard of, David. That it kind of made it okay for girls to, and now it's not just okay, it's now, on the front cover of every magazine, how to perform this particular act, how to bring your fella in this direction, and I think girls would probably feel a huge amount of pressure to do things that they maybe aren't 100% comfortable with, but do because they see people on TV, or they read magazines that this is what's going on. And I think probably a lot of people are having quite ordinary, simple, if not super exciting sex lives.
I suppose like an awful lot of the agony aunts, people ask about how to spice up sex life, say, well, watch pornography and all that kind of stuff, as if that's a good thing, that yourself and your partner look at these beautiful people doing mechanical things and you're supposed to feel that that's going to turn you on as a couple, which I think is an interesting idea. But I suppose I'm curious then about, are we expecting too much from sex based on what we're told we're supposed to, get from sex?
Well, what you kind of said there about the agony aunts and everything, the focus always seems to be on the kind of the raw, the turn on, that kind of thing, rather than the love and the intimacy. Because for me personally, that's always the best sex, the one that comes from the heart, as opposed to including any of the other mad stuff that might have been in Sex and the City. And there's a time and a place for all that, of course, but really within a marriage it comes down to two people that love each other.
And that's where I think men and women differ greatly.
In what way?
Well, I think men can have great sex without having any sort of commitment, and it's happened. I'm not happily married now, but I've certainly not been in love with the woman who I've been with, and it's been just fine. Do you know what I mean?
But if you grew up in a society, Jonathan, right, say maybe 100 years ago, where every time a man had sex with women, he was supposed to make a commitment to her, and that was what you were told in the newspapers. The agony aunt said the same thing. The heroes on television, in the programs, that they did those things. If they had sex, they had a huge commitment to the person. Would that not have changed your perception then of sex and commitment, the connection between the two?
Absolutely, but I don't think that happened. I mean, societies may have said it.
I
think it didn't happen. I mean, the puritanical era, there was no puritanical era. The 20s, the 50s, well, the 1800s, people have sex, and they have sex with people who aren't their partners.
Sure.
And it's one of the big reasons why AIDS is such a huge problem in Africa, that, people have sex with people who aren't their husband or wife. And it's a real statistical problem over there, because the people aren't actually admitting it, and on the surveys, on the paper, no one can understand why there's such a big epidemic. But the truth is that extramarital affairs do happen, however socially taboo they are.
Well, if you look at, say, the buying of underwear, there's the cliched story that men will buy red, lacy underwear, and that's not what women like. I mean, fundamentally, is what a woman finds sexy the same as what a man would find sexy? I mean, the differences between...
What are the differences? So sexy underwear is out. So anyone's
Men are
bought sexy
visual,
underwear.
David. Men are visual. We want to see. And if you look at pornography and pornography tastes with men and women, men want to see, don't they? Whereas girls
does that mean that
want the
women want-
mystique and the romance and the
but-
softness and the
but
sunlight.
Do women, have sex with ugly men that they don't find attractive? Not that there's an ugly man, but that, do they have sex with men they don't find attractive? Or are women not visually stimulated as well?
Well, look, there's definitely women out there who like sex for the sake of having sex.
Sure.
The Sex and the City
Sure.
generation, as you spoke about.
Sure.
But I think when it comes to sex in a marriage, that's very different to Saturday night out on the pool sex.
Yeah.
And one of my friends put it quite well. She said, in a marriage, foreplay begins for the woman that morning. If he got up and, she comes down the stairs at 11 o'clock and the kids still aren't dressed and the curtains are still drawn and there's dishes all over the place and there's mess everywhere, at 7 o'clock that night, if she's been kind of narking at him all day and he hasn't even noticed,
Sure.
she's not going to be into it. It can begin that day.
Of course. All the
Early
research
in the
says that
morning.
the more housework that men do, the more sex we get.
The little things,
That's a
David.
fact.
The little
It's the
things.
little things.
It's so sad.
If she asks you to do the hoovering, gentlemen, do the hoovering and see where it gets you. All those kind of things are very important.
Yeah.
Guys, I want to thank you very much for being with us today. It's been absolutely enlightening to have you both on the show. So thanks so much.
Thanks,
Thank
David.
you.
Take care.